You don't need to be a meteorologist to see that there are storm clouds gathering to the north. They are dark and they are ominous, and they all point in one direction, and that direction is the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy, the prophecy of Ezekiel. I'm John Nieder, and joining me is Ron Rhodes. Ron has written a book about the northern storm rising. And what Ron's talking about is that ancient prophecy that seems right in front of our eyes to becoming a reality in the day in which we live. But Ron, speaking of reality, for you, you really had a reality check in terms of the world in which we live and the dangers that are so prevalent and growing on a vacation a couple years ago.
Yes, I was in England, and I was there for about 2.5 weeks with my family, my wife and 2 kids. And while there, we went south of London one day, and all of a sudden, this lady came up to us in this castle that we were touring through and said, "You're not planning on going back into London, are you?" And we said, "Well, we thought about it." And she said, "Well, you better not do it because the bombs just went off there in London." And apparently, some of the underground trains in the tube, the underground transportation system there in London, some bombs went off there, as well as on one of the double-decker buses there in England, and a lot of people were killed. Now, the entire previous week, we had been on those, underground trains as well as the double-decker buses. So I'm quite sure that I'm probably on the security tapes that the officials looked at to find the terrorists.
The handsome guy there in the corner, right?
Yes, the handsome guy,
with
right.
That nice family.
And, the fact is that there's a good chance that we walked right by some of the terrorist agents who were responsible for that because they had to be preparing the previous week. But providentially, God, kept us away from the city on that day, for which I'm very, very thankful. Of course, I grieve for the people who lost their lives that day. And it just draws attention to the fact that we never know when our day will come.
Do you think a lot of us are asleep now that years have passed, and in the United States, at least, we haven't had a major attack?
I think that in the United States, we tend to have a sense of invulnerability. And I think that 9/11 was a wake-up call in that regard. Nobody expected terrorists to succeed on that level in our country. But they did, and it woke Americans up. But I think that there's just a tendency for us to think that our country is all-powerful, that we can ward off any attack, and that we can withstand anything, and that no terrorist, even though they could do a little damage, they couldn't hurt us that bad. That's a dangerous attitude.
It is.
It is a dangerous attitude.
I agree with you. I don't think we get it, and you're right. It's a wake-up call. I mean, here you got a first-hand exposure to it while in England.
Well, that's right, and it's close to home. And the fact is that the experts today are saying that there's every possibility that at some point in the future, the next decade or so, we well could have a nuclear weapon detonate on American soil. Now, I want you to think about that. If a nuclear weapon detonated in New York, for example, what would happen to the Dow Jones? What would happen to the stock market? Obviously there would be tremendous numbers of casualties, but the economy would collapse. What would happen to American resolve? Would America still be willing to be involved in foreign affairs, for example, protecting Israel if Israel got attacked? What would we do if we got attacked? And what if there's more than one city? Terrorists have long said that they've got 7 target cities that they want to blow up.
That's right.
And so what happened if there was more than one? What would happen to American resolve? What would happen to the economy? So I think that, this sense of invulnerability that we have is very short-sighted, and there could come a day when we're very sorry for not having prepared more.
The title of your book is Northern Storm Rising, and what's interesting in Chapter 1, of course, a lot of your book, you deal with prophecy at large, but you concentrate on what Ezekiel tells us in terms of an invasion from the north into Israel. It's a fascinating book, a fascinating read, but one of the things that got my attention is you reference Ronald Reagan,
oh, yes.
And that President Reagan apparently understood what Ezekiel said. Am I reading that correctly?
Oh, you are. In fact, I got the chance to see Ronald Reagan down at the SMU campus. He was coming down to the sports auditorium down there, and I was pretty near him. I mean, he walked in, and his head was going left and right with that big smile of his, and there's plenty of guys around with earpieces,
right.
Secret security. And the fact is that guy got up there and gave a speech that I'll never forget. But I later discovered through reading that one of his favorite prophets in the world is Ezekiel. And he believed that what Ezekiel prophesied in terms of this coming invasion into Israel would one day happen. And in fact, he believed that we were living in days that were setting the stage for that eventual invasion.
And
So,
we are much closer today than we were back then.
well, we are. And it's not that I am a date setter. It's not that I'm a sensationalist. In fact, Jesus called us to be sober-minded when it comes to issues of prophecy. But Jesus also called us to be accurate observers of the time. And he chastised the ancient Jews for not being accurate observers of the times. And so when you read Bible prophecy and come to an understanding of what the prophecies mean, and then you look around on the world scene and you see the stage being set, you would be a fool to ignore those important points, because Bible prophecy is kind of like history in advance.
It is.
Our God is a sovereign God who knows the end from the beginning. And God has given us many prophecies. And just think about this. Ezekiel 38 and 39 refers to this invasion into Israel, and those chapters follow chapters 36 and 37, which speak of Israel's rebirth as a nation.
The sequence.
Now, that's right. The sequence is right there. We've already seen that Israel was reborn as a nation in 1948.
Coming up on their 60th anniversary.
Well, that's right.
I think things are going to rip loose right around the 60th anniversary. A lot of tourists in the country. President Bush is supposed to be there. It's prime time for some people to be on the international scene with a terrorist attack.
Well, keep your eyes open. I think it's going to happen.